Hey there, welcome to This Explainer. Look, I am absolutely thrilled you're here today. Honestly, if you're joining me right now, there's a really good chance that you've already done the hardest part. You fought your way through addiction, you made the incredibly courageous choice to reclaim your life, and you got sober. As your virtual career coach today, I just want to start by acknowledging that massive, monumental achievement. Seriously, congratulations. But, now you're facing a totally different kind of struggle, one that society, frankly, rarely talks about. Getting a job after recovery? It isn't just about finding work. It's about conquering a really complex job market, overcoming some deeply ingrained stigma, and figuring out how to bridge those glaring employment gaps on your resume. So today, we're going to break down these exact barriers. We're unpacking a step-by-step strategy to actually turn your recovery into your absolute greatest professional asset. Before we jump into the deep end, just a super quick disclaimer. This explainer provides general strategic guidance based on our curated source material. It doesn't constitute formal legal or specific career counseling, okay? But it is definitely going to give you a powerful, proven framework to confidently move forward. That gap isn't laziness. That gap is survival. Wow. I really want to take a second to validate exactly what you've been through with this powerful quote. You got sober. You are ready to work. But employers, they often zero right in on that empty gap on your resume. We know that gap was you actively choosing recovery over employment. It was literally you rebuilding your entire life from the ground up. Now, employers might initially see that gap as a risk, but by the end of this explainer, you're going to know exactly how to completely flip their perspective. All right, so here's our game plan for today. We'll start with number 1, the real job market. Then number 2, overcoming stigma. Followed by navigating criminal records, reframing resume gaps, and finally, number 5, turning recovery into strength. Let's dive right into section 1, the real job market, understanding the terrain. Let's start off by looking at the broader employment picture, because understanding the competitive terrain is literally your very first step before you even hit send on a single application. Globally speaking, unemployment and underemployment mean we're operating in an environment with fewer open positions than there are qualified candidates. Simply put, employers can afford to be super selective. And this beautifully illustrates the specific, systemic barriers stacked against recovering individuals in this exact market. It's literally like this 2D stickman trying to climb up a sheer mountain. You're facing standard background checks, deeply ingrained workplace stigma, a potential mismatch in your technical skills, those dreaded resume gaps we just talked about, and of course, the financial constraints that kind of limit your ability to just casually go back to school. Recognizing this landscape? It isn't meant to discourage you, I promise. It is entirely meant to prepare you. Moving right along to Section 2, Overcoming the Stigma Barrier, Facing the Invisible Hurdle. So this builds into the absolute most damaging, yet totally invisible barrier you're going to face out there, stigma. This operates right beneath the surface of every single application and interview you do. Look, the World Health Organization and leading medical authorities classify substance abuse as a chronic brain disorder. It's a medical condition. It is absolutely not a moral failing. Yet workplace cultures globally often view addiction through this really outdated lens of judgment. They unconsciously associate it with unreliability and dishonesty. These stereotypes are incredibly powerful, and frustratingly, they often determine hiring decisions before you even walk into the room. Which brings us to what I call the impossible disclosure dilemma. Do you disclose your history upfront, or do you stay entirely silent? If you do disclose, research shows you risk immediate rejection based purely on prejudice. We're talking documented discrimination here. But if you stay silent and an employer somehow finds out later, you risk being terminated on the spot for dishonesty. This dilemma carries a seriously heavy psychological toll, and honestly, the job search itself can become a massive trigger. But knowing that this is a shared, thoroughly documented struggle, that allows you to manage the anxiety and build a support network to sustain your recovery while you're navigating the search.
All right, on to Section 3, Navigating Criminal Record Disclosures, Addressing the Compounding Barrier.
For a lot of folks, the journey of addiction unfortunately brings a criminal record into the mix, which naturally creates a huge compounding barrier in the job market. So let's tackle how to strategically navigate this. Here is your step-by-step playbook to deal with a record. Step 1, understand the reality. Many employers just use background checks as basic preliminary screens. Step 2, and this is crucial, know your legal protections. In a lot of legal systems, employers cannot automatically exclude you right out of the gate. They actually have to assess whether the criminal behavior is relevant to the specific job you're applying for. Like a past drug possession charge carries a totally different weight for a software developer role than it would for, say, a pharmacy position. And finally, step 3, always explore record removal. Many jurisdictions have legal processes to seal or expunge records entirely. A shocking amount of people don't even realize this is an option. Seek out legal aid resources in your local area to see if you qualify.
And then you hit that dreaded honesty question on the application. Have you ever been convicted of a crime? The uncertainty around checking that box creates massive, paralyzing stress. You answer truthfully, you risk rejection. You answer dishonestly, you risk termination down the line. But look, anticipating this exact question, knowing your rights regarding job relevance, and already exploring your expungement options in advance, that totally prevents you from just abandoning your job search out of sheer fear.
This leads us perfectly into Section 4, Reframing Your Employment Gaps, Telling Your Story.
Your resume tells a story of visible gaps, and I guarantee you employers are going to have questions. So let's discuss exactly how to control that narrative like a total professional. You've got to be incredibly careful here. Now, obviously, you shouldn't write battling severe addiction on your resume, but leaning on incredibly vague phrases like family matters or just personal reasons can actually backfire big time. In human resources, extreme vagueness almost always reads as hiding something. The key here is to be concise but definitive. For instance, you might use a script like, I took time away to address a focused health issue, which is now fully resolved. Boom. It's honest, it establishes a clear medical context, and it firmly, politely closes the door on any prying follow-up questions.
So you're in the hot seat during the actual interview, and you have to decide in real time exactly how to explain the gap. Here's a short, professional script you can literally just borrow right now from this framework. I stepped away from the workforce to address a medical issue. During that time, I focused heavily on my personal resilience and growth, and I'm really excited to bring that renewed dedication and focus to this role. Do you notice what we just did there? We didn't overshare any gritty details, we framed it strictly as a health matter, and we immediately pivoted the conversation back to the massive value you bring to their company today.
And that, right there, that is the definition of reframing. This is your absolute winning strategy. You are presenting your recovery as a highly positive narrative of personal growth. You aren't focusing on the time you supposedly lost, you are focusing purely on the incredible resilience you gained. Think about it for a second. Someone who has literally rebuilt their life from rock bottom possesses a level of grit, advanced problem-solving skills, and sheer determination that most people will frankly never understand. That is exactly what you are bringing to the table.
But look, beyond just changing the narrative, we do have to face the practical reality of skills degradation. If you've been out of the workforce for a while, your technical knowledge might honestly be a little outdated. Software gets updates, entire industries change. To quickly overcome this specific employment gap, you need to focus heavily on upskilling. Look into short online boot camps, rapid certification programs, or micro-credentials that you can knock out in just a matter of weeks. Even doing some targeted volunteer work or a few freelance projects can instantly update your resume and prove to employers that your skills are sharp, relevant, and totally current.
Of course, doing all of this puts us right in the middle of a super frustrating systemic catch-22. You need a job to prove stability, but employers won't give you a job because your employment history suggests instability. It's maddening, right? You need employment to fund the very training and housing that secures your ongoing recovery. The barriers all interconnect. It feels incredibly unfair because, well, it is. But recognizing this paradox is exactly what helps you stop blaming yourself, so you can start systematically attacking these barriers using the framework we're discussing today.
All right, final stretch. Section 5, Turning Recovery into Strength, Your Ultimate Asset.
Let's tie this whole shebang together and reframe what feels like your greatest weakness into your ultimate asset. Take a look at this framework for an empowered mindset. Literally thousands of people have successfully navigated these exact same challenges, and not by luck, but by using this specific blueprint. First, acknowledge the systemic barriers so they don't catch you off guard. Second, reframe your resume gap as a total masterclass in resilience. Third, navigate your legal expungement options. Fourth, prepare those authentic, carefully bounded interview responses we just talked about. And finally, and this is so important, anticipate workplace integration stress by building a super strong post-hire support network. You need people you can lean on when the new job inevitably gets tough.
I want to leave you with this final, truly provocative thought. Your recovery is your superpower. You have survived things that would completely break most people. You already have the grit. You already have the relentless work ethic. Now, the only question is, how will you tell your story? You've already conquered the absolute hardest part of your journey. Now it is time to communicate that incredible resilience to employers, step fully into your power, and reclaim the career you absolutely deserve. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I wish you the absolute best of luck on your journey forward.